Are we live? We're live. Hello, everybody. We're going to get one of those things that you just go like, action here. I think that'd be great for what we're doing. Well, hey, it's Chef Jeff here from the Sweet and Savory Classroom. Welcome to Virtual Knife Skills. Get your Band-Aids ready because you're going to need them tonight. Oh, wait, that's not the way you open. No. Hope you signed the waiver. No, not that one either. You know what? Just don't cut yourself and we'll have a good time. I'm going to show you a couple of things. So I'm just going to go ahead and move this guy. Look, and here's some of the knives. You don't need all of these knives, but these are here. I'm going to show you about some of these knives. And then if you look down there, I'll just bring it over. Hold on. I'll just bring it over. Okay. I've got some of my ingredients laid out right here, that we'll be cutting. So I'll set this aside right now. Here's some of my stuff for a quick vinaigrette that we're going to make. You don't have to make it tonight. You can cut whatever so a couple things to know. You can cut whatever you want to. You can pull vinaigrette out of the door in your fridge if you have power. Some of us don't have power right now. And then do whatever you want to tonight. But for tonight, I have what was listed in the ingredient list. Except I forgot my strawberries. They're in the fridge, and I'll get those a little bit later. Or maybe Noah will get them for me. Yes.
Okay, Ted, maybe you can go over here and try to get my Zoom back on my phone. Because I'm going to do teaching here anyways without it. This is what I love about technology. Sometimes it is. All right, I am back, and and as long as you can hear me, Hey, if you can hear me in the chat room, say, I can hear you. You're live. Okay, say, I see it, I'm live. Okay, so let's do a little bit of housekeeping first. Wash your hands. And now that I think I'm past all the craziness, let's just pray together tonight. Again, this might be your first time with us, and that's totally cool. If it is, just know I love you, and I don't want you to think I'm just using this opportunity to just like evangelize to you. Listen, you believe whatever you want to believe, but I like to pray. So, Jesus, thank you so much for today, and thank you so much for keeping my family safe. There was so much destruction that has happened in the wake of these past tornadoes. I feel, I got a couple holes in my roof from a tree branch falling. But I feel so fortunate that it wasn't more than that. And just so many lives have been just altered in the matter of minutes from the tornado, even seconds from the tornado. And I just pray for all those families right now that you would lift them up with a spirit of joy and a spirit of peace. And thank you for raising up the community to jump in and help them with rebuilding and clean up. And I've had so many people reach out to me. And I just pray that we can go be a light to them in this time. Again, I always want to be praying for a vaccine for the coronavirus and for all of those who are affected by that. Father, I love you, and I just pray that that everybody would see that your hand is out there to help, that your loving heart is sharing, is being shared with everybody right now, and that the things that are going on in this world are not because of you. You didn't make these things happen. It was our fallen world that has allowed these things to happen, and you are here to raise us up out of that. Thank you so much, Jesus. Amen. Okay, let's start talking. So tonight is knife skills, one of my favorite classes. This is where it all began. This was my first class that I ever taught in. Yes, I covered it. Yeah, covered that, Ted. So this is where, this was like one of the first cooking classes I ever taught was knife skills. And it's actually the one thing that I took for granted for many years. I started cooking when I was 16 years old. I was bussing tables. And when there wasn't enough money bussing tables, like when the tips started to kind of die, I went to the kitchen. I was actually washing dishes, and then I ended up in the kitchen. The first thing they had me do was organize the cooler every day. Every day I would clean the cooler and organize the cooler. And from there, I got to do some prep work. And then from there, one of the guys came back and was like, here's how you hold this thing. You're not holding this knife right. And then I used to curse him back before I knew Jesus, I used to curse him because when I started using it the way you taught me, I got this big blister, and I thought it was totally wrong, but it was totally right. And so since I was around 16, 17 years old, I've had a knife in my hand, a chef's knife in my hand, and I learned how to use it. And I think that made it really, makes me take for granted that when I want to cook, I just open my fridge, pull stuff out, cut and chop it up real quick, like, and then boom, I'm cooking dinner. And then I realize when people come to classes with me here that they're like, well, this takes me like 2 hours to prep all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, this must be painful. No wonder you don't like to cook. You know, some people don't like to cook. It's because it takes so long to get the stuff done. You buy one of those boxes from Blue Apron or from HelloFresh or whatever, and you're like, you know, hello torture, and you know, and my fingers are turning blue. That's why they call it Blue Apron, because you're taking you so long to get it done. And so tonight, let's change that for you. So I want you to relax a little bit. Right now, grab some pretzels or some peanuts or a snack or something. We're going to talk. This is one of my very few classes where we're going to have like a little bit of lesson time. So grab a piece of paper if you want to, and grab a pen, and let's take some notes, because I want to teach you some things before you learn the knife. Because the knife is important, but there's other things before it that are even more important, I think, in my opinion. So we're going to start. If you're ready, can you see the chat, Ted? Okay. If everyone's ready, say I'm ready, Chef Ted, or I'm ready. And Ted is going to monitor the chat room for about 30 seconds. And I'm going to take a drink.
Some yippers. I got one yipper.
Okay. Cool. I got a few. So, all right. Let's talk about a few things. The first is, why do we do knife skills? So the first reason why we do knife skills is because you have to make food edible. You have to make it into a size that you can put in your mouth, right? You can't just like shove this in your mouth unless you're a horse. And okay, so you want to cut things small, so you can go, oh, pop it in your mouth. And like my executive chef used to tell me, if your 83-year-old grandmother can't fit it in her mouth, then it's too big. And he used to talk to us about the size we cut things to cook them, or the size we made like little canapes or anything. You had to be small enough. We'd make canapes, and you have to make, you don't want to make 2,000 tiny little things. You'd rather make like 500 larger ones. And he's like, well, grandma can't pick that up off of a silver platter as you walk by and shove that thing in her mouth without looking like a fool. So don't make her look like a fool. So one reason is to make things edible. That's number one. Number two is to make things cook easier. So if you want to cook something, if you cooked these two things together, this is so much bigger that by the time this is, if you get this garlic, this is garlic, by the way, you probably can't tell. This is garlic. If you get the garlic perfectly done, this won't even be close because it's so much bigger and denser. So the reason why you do knife skills is to get things to cut things to become the same size so that they cook at the same rate. They get done at the same amount of time. And so that's one of the other reasons. Okay. And then the other reason is if you did French bistro and made those little tourné potatoes, is to show skill. And if you cut things in a particular way, then you show skill and it makes your plate prettier. Right? And the last reason is because it just looks cool. Right? If all your friends are over at your house and you are, and you want to like look cool and you want to go, and make it sound all neat, right? And then when they go, wow, you're so good, right? That's what knife skills are, just to show off. I'll show off a little bit, and I'll just pray I don't cut my fingers while we're doing it. So that's why we have knife skills. And so and then also just to be more efficient. Last one is just to be faster, to get food prepped and ready and cooked so you can eat it a whole lot faster. So there we go. Now, after that, let's talk about something very important. When you're responsible, it's like as soon as you say, I'm going to pull out a cutting board and pull out a knife and start cutting and chopping things, you become responsible for the health and the safety of the people that you cook for, including yourself. Okay? And so if you're responsible, that means you need to know a few things about sanitation. Like I said before, part of your housekeeping is to like fill up a sink with soapy water, hopefully the antibacterial kind. You can also make your own bleach water solution, but I would read the label so you don't bleach all your clothes. I'm not responsible for what happens. Disclaimer. Okay, there you go. And we use a commercial grade sanitizer here in buckets that we use and put towels in them so that we can wipe things down and keep things sanitary while we're cooking. But there's more to that. So in sanitation, bacteria is everywhere. And so bacteria gets on your clothing, your hands, everywhere. As we know, I mean, coronavirus, it has totally like pandemic. You could just see how it just spreads across the entire world. To me, it's amazing how well connected we are that something like that happened and how it spread. Absolutely crazy in my mind to see that. So bacteria, that's bacteria. It spreads like that. And so you want to know, so we're going to talk a little bit about bacteria and know that since you're responsible, you shouldn't take that lightly. So bacteria, we're going to do a little bacteria lesson. Bacteria need 4 things to grow. All right, so 4 things. That's water or moisture, temperature, a food source, and oxygen. Moisture, food source, temperature, and oxygen. Those 4 things. That is what we call, that is aerobic bacteria need oxygen. And that's the bacteria that we're talking about. Now, there's also anaerobic bacteria, so you could take away the oxygen, and those anaerobic bacteria would grow with the absence of oxygen, and in something like a sealed container, like botulism would be one of them. It can happen like in a can or something like that, or a jar. We're not talking about those today because that's not something that we can control with the things we're learning today. So all we're concerned about is aerobic bacteria, which needs the 4 things to grow. So let's walk through those 4 things right now. All right, the first is let's go with temperature. All right, so temperature. Your fridge. This is usually I kind of like ask you a bunch of questions right now if you're live in the classroom, but I'm just going to walk you through it right now for this one. So your fridge should be at 40 degrees. Is that right? 40 degrees. Okay, it should be at 40 degrees or below. Most fridges are at 38 and below. So if your fridge, so when you take food and you put it into your fridge at 40 degrees, a lot of times people think the bacteria stops. That is not true. Bacteria still grows in a cold environment like your fridge. It just slows it way down. Think about it logically. Okay, do you ever have cheese go moldy? Sure. You ever have like ricotta cheese or sour cream go bad? Absolutely. Your milk go sour? Sure. Meats and chickens, proteins, they still go sour in your fridge? Yes. Okay. But if you took those and set them out at room temperature, they would go sour much faster than if you put them in the fridge. So what a fridge does is it slows down bacterial growth. That was not your video feed. That was me. Okay. And so it just slows down bacterial growth. And then it allows you to control it a little bit. That's why we have a fridge. Then you take food and you put it into a freezer. Okay, your freezer really should be below 10 degrees and really should be at 0. Good freezers will be at 0. And at your freezer, does your freezer kill bacteria? What do you think? Just think about it for a second. Does your freezer kill bacteria? Answer is no, it does not. If you took ultimate 0 or something like -1,000, whatever, something degrees, the freezer can kill bacteria. But your freezer, for what we're talking about, does not kill bacteria. It just slows it way down. Bacterial growth. It just slows bacterial growth really, really slows it down a lot. So you can take a piece of chicken, wrap it up, Ziploc, whatever, take a perfectly good piece of chicken, put it into the freezer, and in a couple of months, it can go sour in there because bacteria is still growing just at a really slow rate. So the rule of thumb, with your fridge, with any food, write down F as in Frank, so FIFO, FIFO. F as in Frank, I as in Indiana, F as in Frank, O as in Oregon. Okay, FIFO, FIFO. FIFO means first in, first out. First in, first out. So that means when you buy new milk, you don't put the new milk in front of the old milk in your fridge. You take the old milk and slide it to the front because it was the first in. So it has to become the first thing out to get used, and you put the new one behind it. So the same thing happens in your freezer. If you buy more chicken today, and sometimes maybe you buy a big pack for your family and you cut it up, you like break it up into small bags and put it in the freezer, but you still had some other chicken in there, you need to put it on top so it gets used first, or just go ahead and pull it out and use it. And keep even things in your freezer rotated. So the first in becomes the first out. And then let it thaw, smell it, and make sure it seems good. How do you know if something goes bad? Smell it. That's what you're worried about. And if it smells bad, don't use it. If it looks bad, don't use it. If it's slimy, don't use it. Those kind of things. Just use your best senses to do that. So temperature. So okay, we talked about cold temperature. So cold temperature is your fridge is below 40, below 0 is your freezer, and just something to know about your freezer. Your fridge does it too, but your freezer does it a couple times a day. So a couple times a day, your freezer goes through what's called defrost cycle. And so if you've ever gone into your freezer to get ice cream, which many of you, all of you should have at least done once in your life, go to your freezer to get ice cream and you pull it out and you're like, oh, it's so rock hard. That means your freezer is in freezing mode. But if you pull it out and you're like, this has been here for days and it's like super soft, you're like, whoa, what just happened? Most likely your freezer just finished a defrost cycle or was in a defrost cycle. So what that means is I used to sculpt ice for a living with a chainsaw and chisels and all that kind of stuff. And I work inside of a freezer. And so with that, every couple hours, our freezer would go into defrost. And so this is what it would look like. You have the fans blowing cold air to keep everything frozen. And then 4 times a day, the fans go, and they turn off. And then there's heating elements like wires that go through all the moving parts. And the wires heat up and they melt everything off, and everything melts and drips down into a pan underneath. And there's a drain plug and it goes out, right? And so with your fridge, there's probably a drain pan underneath your fridge, and all the defrost stuff, like, because every time you open your freezer, it's cold and it sucks in moisture, especially in Chattanooga with all the humidity. It sucks in moisture, and then once you close it, that moisture freezes up on all the moving parts. So anyways, the wires heat up, it melts down all of the water into a pan, and then there's a fan that blows off that across that pan, and that fan actually dries and actually takes that, evaporates that moisture into your house. That's how a typical freezer works. And then after it melts everything off, your fans will kick back on, and they'll blow for a minute and dry themselves off and everything else. And then the coolant will kick back on and start cycling, and your freezer will start freezing again. So that means your food goes like this in temperature a couple times a day. It's really cold. It warms up a little bit during defrost. Really cold. Warms up a little bit during defrost. So that means it's constantly going through this cycle. So all this to say is something important I didn't tell you is, what are we worried about with bacteria? So what we're worried about with bacteria is how fast it grows. Okay, your body is constantly fighting off things. You've probably had food poisoning more times than you know, just but little bits, because your body's fighting it. And so what we're worried about is multiplication. So your body can handle a little bit of bacteria and it fights it off. Maybe it gives you like a little bit loose stool. Maybe just your stomach hurt for a couple minutes. Very little stuff, and it happens all the time probably. But what we're worried about is like bacteria growing to some exponential rate where there's like millions of bad bacteria in something or on something, and then you eat it, and your body can't, the way your body fights it off is it just comes out both ends. Okay, let's just get graphic and just tell it like it is. Okay, Thailand for me, my Thailand vacation was in the hotel room the whole time. It was a terrible, terrible time. But that's what happens when your body can't handle all the bacteria because there's too much, it fights it off and it makes it, and you throw up and all kinds of crazy things. So that's what we're worried about. That's what we're trying to control. We can't kill bacteria completely off of things. We're trying to inhibit bacterial growth. Because here's those 4 things: moisture, temperature, oxygen, and food source. Those 4 things. If you get rid of one, it starts to slow bacterial growth and inhibits bacterial growth. You get rid of 2, and it inhibits more bacterial growth. You get rid of 3, and you're really on your way. Okay, so that's what you're trying to do is control it. So Now let's talk about temperature on the other side. I gotta quit talking so much. Temperature on the other side, to kill bacteria, if you heat everything to 165 degrees, it's like going boom, dropping an atom bomb on all of your food. And so at 165 degrees for 1 second, you'll kill all bacteria that we are worried about, salmonella, E. coli, etc. Right? But sometimes you'll kill the food too. So you can research actually in more in depth, maybe a different class, there's a relative correlation between time and temperature. So with some bacteria, you can basically keep the chicken at cook your chicken to 150 degrees or something like that, and leave it there for 4 minutes, and it'll kill the bacteria and preserve the quality of your chicken. But that's a different day. Today, we cook everything to 165 degrees to kill bacteria, and then after you kill bacteria, you can actually lower the temperature and keep it warm at 140 degrees for about 3 to 4 hours. So meaning when you go to Mojo Burrito or something like that, and you get a burrito, or you go to Dos Bros and they have that steam table full of all that food, they have to heat it to 165, and then they can hold it at 140 for a couple of hours, and then after that they need to get rid of that and put your new stuff in. So that's what happens there. And so there's temperature. And now let's go to moisture. So moisture is one of those things that when it comes to food, everything's got moisture. So you really can't get rid of moisture unless you dehydrate it, and then you could do that. We'll talk about that in a minute. And so now moisture, bacteria loves to grow in moisture. So we'll come back to moisture in just a minute. And then let's see, temperature, oxygen. You really can't, with what we're talking about, you really can't get rid of oxygen. If you get a piece of meat that's in a cryovac, it's like a sealed, vacuum sealed package, they remove a lot of moisture, but there's still oxygen in that meat, and so it'll slow down bacterial growth because there's less to feed on. But it can still go bad in a vacuum sealed package. So oxygen is something we can really get rid of. And then the food source, well, it's food, so you can't really get rid of the food source either. In this regard of talking about just bacteria and sanitation. But let's talk about it a little bit in a different way. So if you are how do you take a piece of meat and put it on the shelf, call it jerky, like beef jerky, and have it be safe to eat and sit there at room temperature for a long time? Because the other part you need to know is bacteria, its favorite temperature to grow at is right here, body temperature, right around 70 to 100 degrees is its favorite temperature to grow at. So that means you and me are breeding grounds for bacterial growth. Ew, so gross. But you and me are breeding grounds for bacterial growth. So that's why we have to be really careful about staying clean and sanitary with our cutting boards and our aprons and stuff like that. If you've got this apron that you cook in every day and then you hang it up and then you use it again tomorrow, shame on you. Go wash that thing. Take that stiff, gross, greasy apron and put it, you know what, don't even wash it. Just go ahead and burn it outside. Don't burn it. I'm not responsible for what happens if you burn it. But wash that thing, hot water, lots of soap. And because every time you use an apron after a couple of hours, about 3 to 4 hours, either your apron or the piece of food, if it's sitting out at room temperature, will probably, not vegetables, but proteins or something, will be most likely have too much bacteria on them and they'll be bad. So good thing to know. And so that means a piece of jerky, you put it at room temperature and let it sit there. How can it be safe? Well, let's walk you through. Okay. So the first thing you do with a piece of jerky is a lot of times they smoke it, right? And smoking does two things. One is the smoke will actually replace parts of the oxygenated areas in the meat, but it also dehydrates. So we're kind of removing oxygen. So you have the 4 things. We're removing one of them, oxygen. There we go. And we're removing moisture by dehydrating it. And so those 2 things will inhibit bacterial growth. And then we'll put salt on it. Salt will replace the moistured areas. And so salt won't let the moisture back in. And so that helps preserve it because it keeps the moisture out. But then they'll add this secret ingredient called sugar. And sugar is a natural antioxidant. And so you can take sugar. They put sugar in to balance the flavor of all the salt in there. But the sugar is a natural antioxidant. So there we go, taking around some oxygen. That's how you can take a piece of beef jerky and put it on the shelf and call it safe. Because you you've removed so many factors that bacteria can't really grow. As long as it's done properly, it'll hold for a very, very long time. So here's a cooking tip for you. A lot of recipes, when you're cooking at home, if you cut up an apple, they say to take the apple and, actually speaking of, hold on a second. Hey, Noah, can you see if there's strawberries in there and an apple in the fridge? Oh, you got strawberries? Okay, cool. I only need like 3 strawberries. I didn't even see that. See if there's an apple in there, if you don't mind. These can go back in the fridge. So a lot of recipes will tell you to cut an apple, and then what they tell you to do is keep it from turning brown. Everyone say it at once. Lemon juice and water. And then when you eat that apple, it tastes like lemon juice and not an apple. So instead, the next time you cut an apple and you need it to keep from turning brown, but you can't use it right now, just toss it in a little bit of sugar. And after you're done, when you're ready to use it, just rinse the sugar off, and it'll taste like an apple. There you go. Worth the price of admission today. You're welcome. Gotcha. So now let's talk about bacteria in a different way. So Ted, if you would spotlight the cutting board. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So cutting board. So this cutting board, I'm going to cut and chop and do all kinds of things on this cutting board. And so I'm going to get it all dirty, and then I need to sanitize it. This is a wooden cutting board. So the first thing we do on a cutting board is we're going to inhibit bacterial growth. I'm going to reverse engineer it for you here. So I get it dirty. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to use hot soapy water and scrub this cutting board. Okay. And what the hot soapy water does is the soap helps break up the lipids, the fat that are on the board. Especially if like you're cutting meat. Say if you've ever pattied up some burgers or done anything with like red meat, and you get fat all over your hands, you go to wash them. When you go to wash them the first time you lather them up, it's like nothing happens. And you're like, gosh, you rinse them off and you get some more soap and you do it again. You know, sometimes you do it 2 or 3 times because it takes time for that soap to break through the fatty lipids that are stuck to your cutting board or your hands. So that's what soap and hot water does. It breaks through any of the fattiness and helps remove the food source. Because that's one of our 4 items, is remove the food source, right? And then from there, a wooden cutting board, you can't put it in the dishwasher. So there, you may have it's wet. So you just let it stand it up and you let it air dry, all right? And you want it to air dry. You can't dry it with a towel. If you dry something like say this bowl, you have a bowl and it's wet, and you're gonna stack another bowl right on top of it. If you dry it with a towel, that's a no-no, because what will happen is you'll have this vapor layer on here of moisture that you can't see, but it's there. And then you stack another bowl on top of it, and within a matter of, I don't know, a couple of hours, it'll start to smell musty, and because bacteria is growing. So you have to let everything air dry on its own before you stack it or put it away. And so the same thing with the cutting board, let it air dry. And then from there, so we removed food source, we're removing moisture. You can't really do anything about temperature on a wooden cutting board, but you could on the plastic one. We're going to talk cutting boards in just a minute. And then oxygen. You can't really do anything about oxygen because it's just all around us, right? So there you have it. There's kind of like how you do bacteria with the food, and also how you remove bacteria with a surface, just to give you a little bit more in-depth about that. So now, we're going to transition. Bacteria lesson is over. If you have any questions, throw them up in the Q&A, and we'll try to answer them as we move on. If you got questions, that's it. Just know you're responsible, that's number 1, for being safe. Number 2, bacteria loves to grow at room temperature. So keep your stuff in the fridge until you're ready to use it. Don't let it sit out for too long. When you get done using whatever you're doing, make sure you clean the area and sanitize everything very well, and you'll be in good shape. And clean that darn apron of yours, okay? I'm talking to you, and you can admit it. If you want to admit it in the chat room that you're one of those people who use the apron over and over and over, and that changed your life today, you're making a deep dive change in your heart's right there. Then we'll walk through you. We will hold hands together on that one. Okay, I'm here for you. Now we're transitioning. We are going to talk about your cutting boards. There's 4 main types of cutting boards, right? So I'll go down to this one. There's 4 main types of cutting boards. Noah, can you grab me a plastic cutting board if you don't mind? And here, toss these in the fridge, please, sir. Thank you. Okay, there's 4 main types of cutting boards. You have wood, which is right here. Then you have polyethylene plastic, which is on its way. I forgot to pull one over. Then you have bamboo, which I don't have any bamboo here at the classroom. Then you have glass. Okay? Those are the 4 main types of cutting boards. Right? So here's one of our polyethylene plastic cutting boards right here. And if you have a glass one, so if you have a glass cutting board, what you want to do is throw it away. Give it to an enemy. Do a white elephant gift at Christmas, something like that. The glass cutting boards do not do what we need them to do. So what you're looking for in a cutting board is 2 things. Actually, 3 things. You want the cutting board to be soft enough that your knife will like grab it. If I'm trying to push it side to side, I'm trying to kind of push my knife this way, side to side, it'll grab it. Number 2, you want it to be soft enough for that, but 2, it needs to be dense enough that when you cut down, it'll cut through something. And the 3rd is you need to be able to sanitize it. Okay? So a glass cutting board, its surface is too hard. It doesn't give you the grip right here, and it destroys the edge of your knife. No go. Don't do it. Okay? Use it as decoration, throw it away, give it to someone, I don't care, but get rid of it out of your kitchen. And for those of you who cut on your granite countertops or your marble countertops, don't complain to me that you have a dull knife. Just saying, because that's what's going to happen if you cut on a hard surface like that. It's going to dull your knife. No more. There's polyethylene plastic. The pros of a polyethylene plastic cutting board: can go in the dishwasher. That's fantastic. They're relatively inexpensive. The cons are every time you heat them up, they kind of warp a little bit. Like this one, it's got different spots. Like if I flip it over, it's kind of cupped like this right now, and so it spins like a top on this side. So you have to make sure that you every time they get hot, they warp, and it's weird. But you can put them they're relatively inexpensive. You can put them in the dishwasher. I use them all the time. You just have to know that they warp like a champ, and you have to mitigate that. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Then, rid of that. Okay. Then, wooden cutting board. The pros: they look beautiful. Okay. As long as you get a nice thick one, all right, nice thick one, it'll last a long time. Don't get a thin wooden cutting board, because it'll warp and break super easy. So the other pro is, as you're cutting, wood is a shock absorber, so it absorbs all the shock in your, not all, but a lot of the shock in your wrist and your elbows if you're doing a lot of cutting. All right, so they look pretty, they absorb shock. The cons are they're harder to sanitize, but you can. They're harder to sanitize, and they're a little bit more expensive, and they can't go in the dishwasher. But just something to know. The bamboo cutting boards, they're a great product. Again, they can't go in the dishwasher, but they're semi-water resistant. So if they're repelling water some, they're easier to sanitize, because we talked about moisture, getting rid of it in that part. And their price point is kind of in the middle. So they're a very good alternative. Now, a lot of you probably have cutting boards with like little rubber feet and things like on the corners. If you don't have that, either way, I still like to put something underneath my cutting board. So we're going to start talking about from right here. That was cutting board lesson. It's over. Walk through it pretty quick. From here, we're going to start building your station all the way from the ground up. Even in the Bible talks about having a firm foundation, one on rock or stone instead of one on sand. If you build your cutting board foundation on sand, you're going to cut yourself. If you build it on the rock, right, it'll be good forever. So here's what I do. On my big wooden cutting board, I use a wet towel. This is a wet towel folded up, and I put it underneath my cutting board. Whether you're cutting for 30 seconds, 3 minutes, or 3 hours, put something underneath your cutting board to keep it from moving around. Now, a lot of times we use these guys. This is a shelf liner that you get in a big roll, and we cut it up. You can get different thicknesses. I get the thicker one, and so we cut it up into pieces that fit underneath our cutting board. And this works good for the plastic ones. It's not really big enough for this board, so I use a towel. But you want your cutting board not to slide. If your cutting board slides, you will cut yourself, and you will feel bad about it. So don't do that, right? And then, so there's your foundation. A cutting board with something underneath it. I don't care how long you're cutting for, do it. Put something underneath, and then keep it from moving. Next, let's talk about your knives. All right, so there's all these different knives. Guys, we doing good over there? Okay. All right, all these different knives. Just gonna run you through these really quick, really quick. because we got a late start. I want to make sure we get to the skill part of tonight. Ted, I'm going to go back to, is this audio pretty good?
Yeah,
Can-
audio's great.
Is it better than this?
Yeah, I think it's more clear.
More clear? Then I'm going to switch to this side. How do I do that? Yeah. I've done this before. I'm totally inept right now. Huh.
Nice double sheet for a while.
Okay. Going to this side so that cord's a little bit out of the way. So we're experiencing technical difficulties. So for some reason, we cannot get, Zoom will not let us promote panelists right now, to be able to share your video feed. We're not sure why. Yeah, so we're trying to taking a second to figure out why we can't promote your video. We're going to figure that out. We're trying to. Okay, so let's talk about knives for just a second. You have different types of knives. You have boning knives. These are boning knives right here. You have chef's knives right here. You have what we call a finish knife right here. Some people call it a fillet knife. You could use that for that if you wanted to. Like these are kind of finished knives. And then you have some other production knives. So really, I have two categories. You have production knives and then finished knives. Finished knives are something you keep really sharp, and you use it for after the chicken is cooked and you're trying to slice the chicken really nice, really thin, and put it on your plate, something like that. That's what a finished knife is for. Or cutting the bread or whatever. It's already cooked, already done. And a finished knife, if you just look at the quick difference here, a finished knife is usually thinner this way, and it's usually, the chef's knife is much wider right here, and it's usually thinner this way too. So the chef's knife is thicker than this one. And that's just surface area. If you have a lower amount of surface area, then your food will be able to stay together. So if I take this piece of celery and I cut it, right, then see how the celery didn't move? It stayed right there because it's thin and there's less surface area, and it just stayed in place. Okay? But if you take a thick knife like this one, and you cut, right, a lot of times it'll stick. And see how it drug that all the way back here? It's because there's more surface area to allow that to suction to it and drag it out of place. And so that's all. That's all a finished knife is for. Anyways, I don't use a finished knife a lot. I'll tell you why in a minute. So we have that. And then this is another finished knife. It's just a serrated knife. This is not for cutting everything. If you're using this to cut tomatoes, Chef Noah, that means your other knife is dull. Okay, if you use a serrated for everything, that means your other knives are dull, and you need to sharpen them. I'll teach you how to do that in a minute. Okay, then we have all these other knives. And boning knives. I have two different kinds here. One is really stiff and rigid, and the other one is kind of flexible. So the rigid one is made for larger pieces of meat, like meat, right? It's made for, a boning knife is made for just what it says, boning things out. So it's supposed to cut to the bone, and the knife should follow the bone and separate the meat from the bone. That's its job. Again, if it's nice and thick and sturdy, then it is for cutting larger pieces of meat. So this is what I use for the kitchen assistants and chefs that don't work out here. Just kidding. Okay. Then we have one that's more thin and flexible. That one is good for something more fragile, like a small fish, because this one would cut through the fish bones. You wouldn't even feel it. A nice thin one, you'll be able to feel the bones as you're cutting through and help you remove the bones. So that's the difference between those. Then you have a really big boning knife. This is for just doing a steer or big piece of cattle or something. But this one I just got it because it looked cool. Back 20 years ago, I've had it for 20 years and it just looked cool, so I got it. And it has that reverse curve right there. That's called a scimitar. And the samurai swords are that way. And it's just a more ergonomic way when you're cutting, because when you're cutting, most of the time your hand moves from your elbow, right? Can you get my elbow? Your hand moves from your elbow, and so it kind of moves in a circular motion, and so it just follows its motion a little bit better because it's curved. That's it for that one. Then you're left with a paring knife. Paring knife is a great thing. A paring knife is made to do small work. So small work, usually I choke up on a knife like this. I get that high, and yes, I squeeze it, and it won't cut you. It won't cut you unless you pull the knife out. Do not do that. Okay. But if you squeeze this knife, it shouldn't cut you. I use it up here to do a lot of small work. I come grab things, right, and helps you do small work. Okay, I don't use this one very much. Then we have the chef's knife. Hopefully, most of you have a chef's knife tonight to use, and if it's a small one, that's cool. The bigger the chef's knife, the more, if you get comfortable with the bigger chef's knife, you'll go much faster, and you'll see why a little bit later tonight. But I have two different kinds of chef's knife. I have one that is just a piece of cut steel, and the other one that is forged steel. So cut steel, this one here, just means that they rolled out a piece of metal, they cut it to the shape of a knife, slid a handle on it, and call it a knife, right? They sharpen the edge, there you go. And so it's a little flexible, right? It's kind of flexible. It's a lower quality knife, but it's still a great knife. This is probably a $60 knife. And I like it a lot. Pros of this one, it's lighter and it's easy to sharpen. And it's cheaper too, and less expensive to purchase. The cons are it doesn't hold an edge very long because the metal is soft. So you have to sharpen it a lot. So it won't last you forever. That's one of the other cons. And the flexibility sometimes is dangerous. I mean, if you're cutting a lot of big stuff. Next is the forged steel knife. So a forged steel knife is one, if you think about, like, they actually like put this in hot coals, heat it up and put it on the anvil, fold the metal over and hammer it together and then chill it in water, and then they heat it up again, they fold it and hammer it. And every time they fold it together, or sometimes they fold different metals together, every time you fold it over, it gets stronger. If you took a piece of paper, right, took a piece of paper, and it's nice and weak, but every time you fold it, right, every time you fold it over, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger, right? So now this paper is nice and strong. Same thing happens with a forged steel knife. So the pros of it are this thing will hold an edge for a really long time. It'll stay sharp for a really long time. It feels good in your hand. It's super stiff, so it feels really safe and comfortable. The cons are they're a lot more expensive, and they're hard to sharpen. Like, it's hard to get them sharp. But again, if you get it sharp, it lasts like same amount of work. If I cut same amount of work for these, this one would last. I sharpened both the same day and did the same amount of work. This one I had to sharpen almost every week, and this one I would sharpen about every 3 months. So big difference. There you go. All right. So if you can only have one knife, if you had to buy just one knife and you could only buy one knife, a chef's knife would be the one. Because some of you have cleavers, that's a different style of cutting, but the chef's knife is the one you'd want because you can do anything with the chef's knife. You can bone something out if you had to. It could replace your boning knife. You can do small things with it if you need to. You can do anything with this knife. So there you have it.
Is there a brand you recommend?
Brand, so this is a Victorinox right here, the less expensive one. I really like these. And this is a Henkel. And I like Henkel a lot. There's Henkel and Wusthof. There's just so many different brands, global. I've always been like a Henkel kind of guy. I like the way the curve is right here on a Henkel. A Wusthof is a little bit different. I like to be a little bit longer curve so that I can rock all the time. So there we go. Very good question. All right, so now.
Someone asked you like Cutco.
Like what?
You like Cutco?
I've not really used Cutco a bunch, so I couldn't tell you that for sure. So if you got them and they're still sharp, then use them. That's what I got to say. So let's do a quick, I'm going to show you how to sharpen a knife really quickly. Once I get it set up.
Position 218.
What's that?
Position 218 with Zoom support.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
We'll see what gets done fast in this queue with this.
Yeah. Ted is number 218 in the queue for Zoom questions. So we'll probably get done with class, like you said. Probably get done with class before he gets help on his Zoom. And so here we go. We are going to I'm going to teach you how to sharpen a knife. We sharpen a knife in 3 steps. Okay, let me get this right in the middle here. So get set up, meaning your stone, if you have a stone like this one, or you have one that's just one that you flip over, that's fine. Either one, the principles work the same. And so here I am going to use the fine grit, which is that one right there. Mine is an oil stone, so I'm going to use mineral oil, put it on there. Do not use a vegetable-based oil like olive oil or canola oil or anything like that. It'll clog the pores. You want a nice clean oil like mineral oil so that there's nothing to clog the pores and it won't go rancid. Olive oil does go rancid. It's from a fruit actually, and so things like that do go rancid. So here's what you need to know to sharpen a knife, and you get to practice this later. Right? I have three things. Number one is you first put your knife on and you find an angle. So the angle from between your knife, between the knife and the stone. So you need to be somewhere like this is 90, that's 45, and so I'm gonna go down to about 30 degrees-ish. Okay, doesn't have to be perfect. What's more important is once you get your angle, that you lock your wrist and you keep the angle the same all the time. So think like Mr. Robotnik. You want to sharpen like Mr. Robotnik. Basically, the more perfect you can be at this, the sharper your knife will be. That's the goal. So I get my angle, I lock it in place. That's one. Number two is I go from end to end. Like don't start right here and miss all this part right here. Okay. Make sure you start right here at the end and get that and go all the way to the other. Okay. So there's number two. Go from end to end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The third thing is do the same number of strokes on both sides. So I did it 5 on that one. On that side, it means I'm going to come to the other side, get my angle, go from end to end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So those are the 3 steps. Master those and your knife will get sharper. So you want to get your angle, lock it in, go from end to end, and do the same number of strokes on both sides. The more robotic you can be, the sharper your knife will be. That's it. Okay, and that's something you just have to practice, 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 and practice. Okay. Now, if some of you have, you can use this same principles for any sort of knife, for even for a pocket knife. You can even, sometimes people get like a really small stone. And if they get a really small stone, what I like to do is I actually like to hold my knife and then just do the stone. Let me see if I can get you a bit. And I would just hold my knife and do it this way. So if your angle is lower, like 15 degrees, will your knife be sharper? Not necessarily. Your edge. So if your angle gets really low, it doesn't necessarily mean you get sharper. It just means that the edge itself, that kind of like light gray, the edge gets wider. That's all. You can get a knife super sharp even at like 35 degrees. You can have it really high and get super sharp. So the lower you go doesn't mean it gets sharper. It just means that you have a wider edge, and that's all. Very good question. Very good question. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I'm talking about Mr. Anderson. Which pill would you like to take? What about electric sharpeners? Just be careful with your electric sharpeners. I've not used one before for my knife, but I've seen knives that were sharpened with electric sharpeners, and you just have to be really gentle. They take off a lot of metal very quickly. All right, a lot of metal very quickly. Susan, where do you get the stone for sharpening? You can get it on Amazon. You can Google and just buy them on Amazon or whatnot. The stone that I got, someone gave me this one. You can go to Lowe's or Home Depot when they're open, and you can get a stone from the lawn and garden department. It's like for doing your lawnmower blade. It's like dual-sided. You can use that, and those work great. Most of the ones you buy online will probably be a 2-sided one. Like this is a tri-stone, so I've got 3 sides. It's kind of a nice little stone to have, but you can get one with just 2 sides and you'll be fine. Last thing I'll tell you is they have other things like this. They have some things that there's like a crisscross little thing that it has like a handle, and you pull your knife through it, scrapes off a lot of metal. Okay, wears your knife out really fast. Right? So any of the ones that kind of do the work for you, you have to know your knife. Okay, If you look at the bottom of this one, I've got this heavy piece of metal. If yours has that, you have to sharpen it by hand. If it doesn't, you have other options, okay? Because this thick piece, it won't fit, right? Like this guy here, this is a sharpener. It won't fit in there. It won't go in, right? So it won't work. This one has wheels in it. This is a really great one. It's from Priority Chef. Priority Chef. This is like 15 bucks on Amazon. It's great if your knife doesn't have the butt end. It's nice and just thin right here, because then you can put it in and you just pull. Now this is one that the wheels turn inside, so it doesn't grind. It doesn't take a bunch of metal off your knife. Okay. If nothing moves on the inside, it's not good. Okay. Okay, Donna, yours has two sides, 1,000 and a 240. So that just means the grit. The 240 would be your rougher grit. That's where you'd start first, right? And then the 1,000 would be the finer grit. That's where you would finish your knife off. And then Noah, the honing steel. Usually, that's right. We had it in the dish room earlier. It's in there somewhere. All right, Noah's gonna get the honing steel, and I'll show you what that's all about. So y'all, the goal is when you're sharpening your knife, for you to grind one side down, grind the other side down into a point, and you got a sharp knife. That's it. And it just takes time and it takes practice. Now, you take this point. Okay, you're gonna ask, well, what's this for? Okay, I'll tell you that in a second. So you take your knife and you grind one side down, you grind the other side down, you got this point. Then you take this point and you go like this, and you jam it into the cutting board over and over and over and over. What do you think happens to the edge of your knife? It looks like this, all jagged and nasty, right? On a microscopic level, it gets really like all jagged and bent up, that really sharp edge. That's what happens. So what the honing steel does, you take it and slide it across the honing steel, and it puts everything back in place. And so this is not a sharpening device. This is a maintenance device. It's called a honing steel. So you sharpen your knife on the stone. That's where you grind the new edge and make it sharp. And then you come to this guy, and you can use this a lot. And the same rules apply. You get the same angle that you used on your sharpening stone, same angle on here. Go from end to end and do the same number of strokes on both sides. Okay? And what that does is just maintenance. So while keep this one out, get one of these. If you don't have it, keep one out. And while you're cutting a lot, use this. Here's the rule of thumb. Sharpen it first, and then after you cut a few onions or whatever, use the honing steel. When you get done with the honing steel, if your knife feels sharp again, you're good. But when you get done with the honing steel and your knife still feels dull, that means you need to sharpen again. So you can use this a bunch of times. This is like maintenance, and every once in a while you have to go back to the stone to sharpen. Maintenance, sharpening. Cool. We're moving on. Okay. I feel like I'm flying through on y'all tonight. I thought I could do it in less time than I normally do this class, in about 2.5 hours. We got a little slow start, so my apologies for that. All right, so knives, cutting boards, all that good stuff. I think we're good there. And then, any other questions before we go into the actual skill itself? You need to. So this is a point where stand up, give it a stretch. The neck's a little tight. Make sure you get your cutting board. You can get ready. We're getting ready to start cutting. Here we go, y'all. The first time, when you usually pick up your knife and you put it on the table, here's a couple of things that happen. A lot of times, sometimes people hold with their thumb on the side. That's one. A lot of times people do this. They put their finger on top. That's two, right? And so neither one of those are good. And the third is people just hold the handle, and that's not your friend. So here's why. When you hold the handle with your thumb when your thumb's on this side, it makes the knife go over this angle. Okay. If you put your finger on top, a lot of times you kind of have this angle. Not so good. And if you're holding the handle, go like this. Okay. It's wobbly. We don't want that. That's unsafe. So what we want to do is you want to take these two fingers, and I have to call us to pinch and grab. So pinch right here on the blade, okay? Right there on the blade, pinch, and these three fingers I want you to grab the handle with. Okay, this is the only legal pinch and grab we have. Don't tell HR that you learned how to pinch and grab. Something might happen, okay? So pinch and grab, and yes, your finger is on top of the blade. So pinch and grab, and then what you're going to do is you take the tip of the knife, and I want you to put it on the table. Okay, I want everyone to put it on the table, press it down hard. Press it down. I want you to do this. Can you pick it up? Can you pick you should be pressing down so hard you can't pick it up off the table. So what's happened now? When you pinch and grab, what it does is it takes the blade and it lines it up with the bone in your arm. So now it's a straight line extension of your arm. And it just made you stronger. Because when you do it the wrong way, it's just wrist power. No one's wrist is strong. But when you do it the right way, when you pinch and grab, now the blade is lined up with the bone in your arm. So you have not only wrist power, you have elbow and shoulder power too. And so that makes you a lot stronger. The second is you have a lot more, like wiggle it this time, way sturdier than the old way. This is wobbly. This is way sturdier. Okay? Next is the tip of your knife. When you put the tip down on the table, excuse me, that's your second point of stability. So you have one here with your wrist, second with the tip on the table. So my knife, if you look at it, there is two distinct cutting areas of the knife. If the food is between my fingers, excuse me, if the food is between my fingers, this is where you're chopping. You hear the sound? That's the chopping sound. We don't chop very much. Chopping is not something we do a lot. That's where using the tip of the knife. What we do most of the time is we cut. So this is the chopping side, and then this is where we cut, if the food is way back here. So cutting, again, chopping sounds like this. It's just up and down motion. Your knife leaves the table. We don't do that very much. Cutting is where you take the food and you slide it all the way back here. And cutting is where the tip of the knife stays on the table the whole time. So you're going to cut down, and there's a flat spot right here. You should feel your knife hit flat. Okay? So you cut down, slide forward. Then you bring it back. Let me see if I can get sideways. Okay? So down, forward, bring it back. Down, forward, bring it back. Okay? That's cutting. Okay? Cut, recover. Cut, recover. Cut, recover. Cut. Come on down, like down in here. Like that. Okay? Cut, recover. Cut, recover. Cut. That's the cutting motion. Okay? That's how we cut. The tip stays on the table the whole time. See, it never comes off. That's what we're doing most of the time. And you can cut really fast this way. So now let's learn how to do the other hand. All right. Well, let's get this one. Let's get this one finalized. So take your knife. And we're going to put it in the safe zone. The safe zone is here. Take your knife and tuck it underneath the cutting board for just a minute. Everyone do that. Anytime I'm cutting, this is my safe zone. I don't like to put it here, right? Because if I put it here, a lot of times that hangs over, and next thing you know, you're hitting it when you're moving around. So tuck it, blade underneath your cutting board. That's your safe zone. Now, I want you to take your hands, okay? And so you can see my cutting board too, but you can look up and see me too. So try to have the view where it shows my face and the cutting board. Get relaxed, stretch it out, and take your hands. Go like this, like you're saying a prayer. Oh, I pray I don't cut my fingers tonight. Okay? And take your hand and just let your hands just fall to the table. Real nice and easy. Just let them fall. Do it a couple times. Just okay. Now, once they've fallen to the table, my fingertips are down. Do you see both my hands are at an angle? this is my cutting arm. That angle is where I call my natural cutting angle. So that's where I'll put my knife in, pinch and grab, and I'm going to cut at that angle. Because that's where I'm most comfortable. Here's the difference. What some people try to do is sometimes people turn their knife. Okay, I'm going to get lower. I'm going to do this. Okay, so here's my natural cutting angle. See, I've got space in between my body here. My arm can move really easily, okay? But what a lot of people do is they take their knife and they try to turn it. And see what happens here? That all that space goes away. They try to turn it straight with their cutting board. See how that knife is parallel with the edge? They do that, and then your elbow is all like touching you, and you can't move. Or they try to turn it this way, parallel with the front of their board or the top, and then you're so far out you have no power, and you're back to just all wrist power again. See how the blade's going that way and my arm is a different direction? So pinch and grab. It should be one straight line at an angle that's nice and comfortable. So that this arm should be super uber duper, is that even a word? Comfortable, really comfortable, okay? Really comfortable. Look at you, Palmers. That's cutting like a champ over there. Hold on. Push that finger down. Push that finger down. Okay. There we go. So.
Smooth over with a Laurel Ryan.
Okay. I can't. I'm on Spotlight, so I can't. Let me see. I'll pull everyone back up. All right. So there we go. Now take your knife and put it in the safe zone for a minute. And give me your other hand. So I have lefties probably, things like that. So your other hand is what we call the claw. So I want you to think about like you're holding a ball. Okay, so you're holding like some sort of ball or something like that. Or just give me your best bear growl. Ready? Huh? You know what? Unmute them. Let's hear their best bear growl. You're going to get unmuted. And if I don't hear a bear growl, we're just stopping.
Hold on. Do it.
I can hear some of you. Ready? Give me a bear growl. I love it. Ted said, my producer Ted said for 22 people, that was pretty weak. I'm just saying. You can leave everyone on for a minute. We might be getting a bunch of feedback. So now you're okay. Yeah, too much feedback. We're gonna mute you. We're gonna mute you again. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. So, okay, I'm good. Okay. So your claw. What you want to do with your claw is you take it and you put it onto the cutting board, and I want to hear fingernails. Okay. I want to hear fingernails. And what you want to do, your claw needs to be curved like that. It needs to be curved, and you want to hear fingernails. Now this is the part. You have your claw, and watch my elbow. Okay. Most of the time, if your elbow is down, and you're cutting, what's going to happen is you're going to cut your thumb off. We don't want to do that. So what you do is you have your claw and you take your elbow and you just raise it up, called chicken wing. Okay. So watch my hand. So when the elbow goes down, my hand comes down. Twist. Elbow goes up and it twists. All right. Up, down, up, down. So we put your chicken wing. Feels very uncomfortable. Okay, and that's okay. Chicken wing comes up, and then you grab your knife and do pinch and grab. Put the tip on the table, and then press them together super hard against your middle knuckle, right? Your middle knuckle. Press the knife against your middle knuckle super hard. And that's where you cut. As long as your fingers are curved, as soon as your elbow goes up, that means your thumb should be protected, okay? So if your chicken wing, if your elbow comes down and you're cutting, your thumb will come on the side and you can cut it off. But if your elbow is up when you're cutting and you get done, your thumb is protected behind your fingers. So pinch and grab, claw, chicken wing, press them together. Right? And then go ahead and get in that cutting motion. I'm pressing against that middle knuckle the whole time. That's how I know where my knife is. That's how I can cut fast, and I can look you in the eye when I'm cutting because they're touching each other. So I know where they are the whole time. Right? If they're separate, it's real dangerous for me and for you. But if they're touching, then you know where it is. Right? So now here's one thing about cutting is you don't move the food. A lot of times people think you like take your thumb and you push the food up. We don't do that. You plant your thumb on it, plant your thumb on the ground, and then you press against your middle knuckle and you're pressing your fingers back until it touches your thumb. Then you reset, press again. Okay? So let's do this in action. I've got a couple onions that aren't really in great shape. So we're gonna try to work our way through that. I don't wanna go home smelling like an onion, so I'm gonna put some gloves on. You don't have to, but I'm gonna put some gloves on. You know what, actually I'm gonna go in a different order today. We're gonna work our way up. We're gonna end with some onion and garlic. So if you had an onion, scrap that. Get whatever lettuce you have. Whatever lettuce that you have, we're gonna start with something nice and easy with lettuce. So here we go. I'm gonna tilt this back down now. Get over top. Okay, we got, so Noah, come nice and low, okay? All right, so I've got my lettuce, and you can stack it up if you want to. All right, you can stack it up if you want to. And I'm gonna roll it. I'm gonna pinch and grab. Yeah. We're getting a close camera for you. There we go. All right. All right, try not to wobble. Pinch, grab, claw, chicken wing. See, my thumb ends up behind it when I do the chicken wing. And then I'm gonna cut. So take your food, and I want you, if your food is up here in the front of your knife, no good. Slide it all the way back, okay? Slide all the way back so that your hands touch. And you're gonna cut. Slide, 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 okay? You should be cutting down and sliding forward. Sliding forward. And this is what's called chiffonade. Chiffonade. Chiffonade? So it's a French term for a long, it's a julienne. So this is a julienne, okay?
Hold up. I was highlighting some nice cuts that I saw.
Okay, julienne there.
There you go.
Okay, it's a julienne, a long, thin strip of
Sorry, I'm not your phone.
of a green leafy vegetable. You have my phone? Okay, there it is. Green, long strip of a green leafy vegetable is what's called a chiffonade. Okay, that's a chiffonade. And so, well, actually, I'll leave it on mine for just a second, Ted. Okay, here, I want everyone to just get real quiet for just a second. I want to show you the difference between something. Okay, I'm gonna roll this up and just listen. Just listen. That's an up and down, just up and down motion. Set this aside. Now, take some more. Just listen. Just listen. This is cutting. Do you hear the difference? One sounds like you're smashing it. The first one sounds like you're smashing it. And the other one is slicing through it. So if you can get real close. Okay, this one here, I don't know if you can see. This one here, you can see it kind of looks like kind of darker green because it's wet, it's bruised on the outside. So if you press up and down, just up and down, you bruise everything. And then in a few minutes, this one will be wilted. Okay, and why is this important? Well, if your guests are coming over in an hour and you want to get the spinach salad done, or you want your basil to stay green, if you go up and down, you bruise it and it'll be wilted and brown. Okay, but if you cut through it, see those edges, they look dry and crisp. This will stay nice looking in your fridge for days. Ruined in minutes or hours, good for days. The difference between going ruined is up and down, up and down, up and down. It's not cutting. Cutting is a verb. It's a motion. And so cutting is where you slide. Let the knife do the work. Here's that example. Ready? You squeeze the knife, doesn't do a thing. Squeeze it as hard as you want to, won't do a thing. But if I pulled the knife, slid the knife, it would cut through all my fingers because a knife is made to cut in motion. So we're going to build a salad. Now, we'll grab me a plate if you don't mind real quick, sir. Thank you, sir. I'm glad you're here tonight. Okay, sit it right down. So I'm going to get a bunch of my lettuce, and you can practice more with this after we're done if you want to. So I'm going to slide through. Okay, sliding through. And now I've got some chiffonade of green leafy vegetable. I'm going to start building my plate. So there's that. I'm just going to do a small portion. And of course, you can practice more after we're done if you'd like. I'm just showing you the skill. You will have homework. Can I tell you about the homework? I know you wouldn't have signed up if you knew there was homework. But yes, there's homework. Take a drink. How are we doing, y'all? We doing good? I hope so. Let me turn on my Q&A in case y'all have any major questions. Cool. All right. So now we did that. Now we're going to do something. I'm going to take celery. Okay. Okay. Now I'm just going to show you things I'm going to show you this in a different way. So I take my celery, and hey, this here, just barely shave that off. Don't cut like this much off. That's such a waste. Okay. Don't do that. Don't waste food. So barely shave that off. That's trash. All right, this other end, we already trimmed it earlier, so it looks good. And so this one, anytime something is longer than your knife, it's bad news. This is your only cutting area. It's only like about 3 to 4 inches long. So cut this into lengths that fit underneath that part. Because this part here is for rocking. This part here is for cut. And let me show you something that's kind of neat. Noah, you got your camera. Can you come shoot right here? Okay. Okay. I want you to come down low. Shoot right in here. Okay. So take this. Here's a cool thing. Take this little piece of celery. Okay. If you put the food in the wrong spot, which is up here in the front, look how high I have to get on top of that piece of celery to cut through it. Look how high my knife is. If I slide this piece of celery, barely can see it. Let me get a thicker one. Okay, if I slide the celery all the way back here to where it should be, as far back on the knife as you can get it, look how low my knife is to get on top of that celery. Okay, it's just safer and more efficient being all the way in the back of the blade instead of way up here. Okay, this is the wrong area, right area for your food. So just stay right there, Noah. Okay, so we're going to take the celery and we're going to cut it first. We're going to cut it into strips. So I'm going to hold it and I'm going to cut it into strips. These are called julienne. Julienne. Okay. Cut it into julienne strips. I'm going to leave some of those just for you to see. Julienne strips. And then if you want to dice it, you turn the strips. So I'll come up just at an angle a little bit, like right. Yeah, right like that. You turn it and line them up. Like I turn it and line them up, kind of get them all tight. And then you get your pinch and grab, claw, chicken wing, put them together. And then you cut, and we're getting dicing. You get to choose the size. You're always getting to choose the size as you go. All right? If you've ever seen people go back and do this like this thing, don't ever do that. Okay? That's a sign of not a really good chef. Okay? You're going to have to go back and do that. You should be choosing your size, your finished size, when you first cut these, and then when you cross cut them, you got this dice. That's how you do it. So there we go. We have julienne celery, diced celery. Cool. Now let's take a pepper. Pepper's a fun thing. And don't stress right now if you're not keeping up with me. Don't stress. What I'm about to show you is I'm basically going to be a broken record. We're just going to do the same thing over and over and over because the two things you do the most are julienne and dice. Julienne and dice. And so I'm showing you that over and over in just different ways. We julienned.
There's some good juliennes out there.
Some Chef Ted said there's some good juliennes going on. So now we're going to take a pepper. Here's a couple of rules. Anytime, okay, you're bouncing around like a champ. Yes. Okay. Anytime something is round, you want to get a flat spot. Like, see, that's round. It's dangerous to cut. So I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to flip it up this way. Now this one's got a pretty decent flat spot. But just say, for instance, it didn't. You would take this and don't cut a bunch off, right? Don't cut like a ton. Just barely shave a little bit off so that you get a flat spot to keep it from rolling around. Then I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to cut down. There's once, twice, you know it's coming, 3 times a lady. And then you have to 4 times. I don't know what that means. But, so the only waist should be that. Okay. So I cut from the top. Okay, that's my only waist. I won't teach you to cut sideways tonight. That's a different method. That's going to be like advanced knife skills. Don't do that. If you want to get this white part out, take it and rip it out, or grab a spoon and scoop it out. Okay? Super easy if you want to get that out. But your pepper. So your pepper, we're going to julienne it first. So julienne is long, thin strips. And you can, again, choose the size you want it to be now. Right now. It's not a later thing. You choose it now. Now, your claw. Here, I'm going to leave some julienne right there. There's some julienne. Let's check in with your claw hand. So we're going to turn it, line everything up. Okay? And then you're going to take your claw. And your claw can go on something really big. It still works up here, really big. And it can go on something really small. Your claw still works. Right? Now we'll come around to this side. I want you to shoot right here. Just see the back side of my hand. Okay? So here's my thumb. Oh, that's beautiful, okay? So if your thumb is on the side, you'll cut your thumb off. So you want your claw to be like this. Right? And then I'm gonna cut across and dice these. So when I get done, my thumb is behind my fingers. Like that, behind them. Okay. Cool. So we have julienne peppers, diced peppers. Are you seeing the pattern? Are you seeing the pattern? I hope so, because that's what we're doing with everything. Okay? So then, carrot. I'm actually going to start taking and putting this stuff on the plate. And here's why. Noah, what is your cutting board? Is it a storage facility or a work surface? It's a work surface, chef. That's what he said. It's a work surface, chef. Okay? I'm still working on Noah. Okay? All right. So your cutting board is not a storage facility. I recommend getting a plate or something to start putting your ingredients on every time you're cutting. Get them off your cutting board. You need the space, okay? If you lose the space, you get messy, you get sloppy. We don't want sloppy around here. Do we, Chef Noah? Not allowed. I feel like I'm gonna go over on time for everybody. We will in a few minutes after we get through the first round of cutting. So if you got something dense like a carrot, it's a good time for that. Okay? Again, you'll have more practice time. I'm showing you the fundamentals tonight. So carrot, I like to put the tip on the table, and I cut one. I just peel one side, flip it, peel the other. Cutting board is my stopper. Now, get rid of your scraps. Always keep your cutting board clean, clean, clean. All right. Wipe it down. Hey, let me know how you're doing in the chat. I know we're drinking out of a fire hose right now, but let me know let Chef Ted know how you're doing in the chat actually, and he'll let me know. Okay? So excellent. Now, again, your carrot is too long for your knife. I see some of you still peeling. That's cool. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. I can give you a few seconds to catch up before I do the carrot. because there's some important things I want you to know. And if you're caught up and you got a question, hit me up in the Q&A because I can type right now or answer it. It's right here. Hi everybody, I'm in Spotlight now. Doing knife skills. We're gonna cook some chicken here in a minute. And we're probably gonna go a few minutes over because we started a little bit late because of all the technical difficulties. My apologies. And I talk a lot. All right, so your carrot. Don't cut your carrot. You ready? I'm gonna show you a couple of things. All right, your carrot, it's dense. It's a dense thing. Carrots, potatoes, turnips, parsnips. Dense things can be dangerous if you don't know what to do. So, Ted, highlight the cutting board again. All right, first thing, we're gonna take the end, and we're gonna cut that off. Just barely shave it. Like again, don't waste a bunch, just barely. Paper thin, paper thin. That's all you need. Then we're gonna cut it in a length that fits underneath my cutting part of my knife, right there. Now, the heel of your hand, right here, the heel of your hand. Okay, when something is dense, this first cut can be dangerous because it wants to move around, etc. So we take the heel of your hand, and for the first cut, you set it down. We say down for stability, up for agility. Down for stability, up for agility. Float like a butterfly, cut like a bee. These young guys, they don't even know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I got a clue. Yeah, whatever. You know, I butcher things as much as I can. I mean, I don't know. Whatever. It works. So your carrot. So put your claw on here, and for the first cut, take your heel of your hand and sit it down. So it's nice. It can't move, right? I'm pushing. Just can't go anywhere. And then you still put your tip of your knife on the table, and you cut off a flat spot in the thickness. This piece here should be a usable thickness. So whatever thickness you want your finished product to be, this one should be it so that you can use it. Okay? Then once you do that, you put that flat spot down. Now it won't roll around. So now you come back up for agility. Bring the heel back up. And we're going to cut planks. This is what I call planks. I think of like woodworking, right? And when you get to a point where you feel uncomfortable, like, oh my gosh, like I'm slipping off, that's fine. Just let go. It's not, don't try to hold on to the food so much that you cut your fingers, okay? If you're slipping off right here, I like to spin it around, and you'll get a better grip and get maybe one more cut. And then I get to the point here where, you know what? It's so thin, I'm just going to let go, and I'm done. So here I have planks. These are what I call like planks of wood. I think like, you know, you went to Lowe's and you picked up a board. That's what I think of. Now, we're going to cut it into julienne strips. So the process is cut into julienne strips. There we go. Look at some julienne. I'll leave those there for you. Now, I'm going to cut some more julienne strips. If I want to dice these, what do, y'all? You turn them. You're right. I know that's what you were thinking. Turn it 90 degrees and then cut across in the thickness that you want them to be. Okay? Okay? So that's probably a brunoise. Brunoise. Okay? Which I gave you in your notes tells you different sizes. Okay? So if you choose the size at the beginning, right, and then choose it here, then you get the results you're looking for. Now, if you're feeling froggy and you're like, oh, I'm doing pretty good with my knife skills, then you can stack a couple up and just double your production. See, I got 2 stacked. Stack them up. Again, make sure you slide the food all the way, slide the food as far back in the knife as you can get it so your hands get real close together. And cut a julienne. There's a julienne. If I want to dice some, turn it, line them up, cut across. A couple things that you might be doing. If you're squeezing the food, I'm going to show you something. Watch this. So I get down here. So I'm actually barely touching the food, if you're wondering. Like, how do I hold on to the food? It's a very popular question at this point. I don't hold the food very much. I kind of have these two together, and this hand, my food hand kind of kind of hovers on top and barely touches the food. Okay, and so that allows everything to work. Because here's the thing: I want you to take your claw hand. So set your knife down. Take your claw hand and put it on your arm right here. Okay, if you squeeze your arm, see how my fingers, they curve out. Okay, see, like they curve out like that, right? I'll find the camera there. Get it? They curve out. Well, when something curves out, that means I can chop them off. But if you take your claw hand like this, take your claw and put it on your arm and push down. Okay, just push down a little bit. That's what keeps them curved, right? So if they're curved and I cut, there's nothing on the other side of my hand, right? There's nothing on the other side of a knife if they're curved. But if I squeeze and they curve out, right? It's like if I squeeze something and they curve out, there's fingers that you can see on the other side of my knife. But if I curl them and press down, there's nothing there. That's where you're safe. Okay? All right. So there's that. Now let's go to something else like, not yet. I'm ending with onions and garlic because onions and garlic, well, they'll make everything else taste like onions and garlic, everything you cut in your cutting board. So I got a couple strawberries. This is where I'm going to show you how to use the tip of your knife for just a second. It's chopping. I'm going to take this and I'm just going to slice straight down. And I'm going to keep a little bit connected right there. Yeah, food too, camera. Come right on top of me, right here. Close. Right, like, right there. Okay? So here is where I'm cutting straight down, but I'm leaving a little bit connected. There. See that? This is called, you hear that sound, that means I'm chopping. I'm gonna get to the end, you know what, just like a, and here, once I do that, I'm just gonna press it. And it'll be a nice, pretty little fan. Look at that. Pretty little fan here. You see that up close? Pretty little fan. I'll show you one more time. Here's my other strawberry. So, I'm gonna cut down, getting there real close now. There you go. I get to the end, just let go, and then press. That's just a fun thing to do with the strawberry. We have that. Then I'm going to show you how to do an orange real quick. These are just, now, yes, I'm going to show you how to peel an orange since I started. So actually, no, stay right here. Okay. All right. So Noah's phone might die, y'all. So we might lose. All right. So again, you have something that's round. Now this is a bonus. This wasn't on your ingredient list. I'm just because I had it. I wanted to show you. Okay. So orange. I'm going to cut the end off. Then I'm going to turn around, cut the other end off. This is a way to peel an orange that's really fun. So you cut the ends off. Now you know the orange. It's curved, right? It's curved. So you take your knife, you put it up top. I still have my pinch and grab here. I have my claw, I have my chicken wing. Put them together, touching that middle knuckle. Now I'm just going to angle the knife so that I can follow the shape of the orange all the way down. Now, if I turn, for me, I'm right-handed, so that means the food is in my left hand. If I turn counterclockwise, look, I can't, my next cut should be right there. I can't really see it. So I'm blind, I'd be cutting blind. That wouldn't be good. So turn it so that you can see the next cut that you want to do. Because you're going to overlap. You're going to cut there, right there. I'm going to turn just a little bit. Cut a little bit more. Turn just a little bit. And you just follow the shape. You use this for peeling an orange, peeling a grapefruit, peeling a cantaloupe, peeling a honeydew, peeling a pineapple. Okay, so these are just, I'm just teaching you something, a principle, right? And that you can use over and over and over. I just had an orange, I wanted to show you that. So there's a peeled orange. I'll be devouring that later, okay? Once again, clean your cutting board. And let's do an onion. That one looks terrible. I'm putting gloves on. I don't want to smell like an onion. My wife will appreciate that. Hey, all you wives out there, you just tell my wife I love her, okay? Because I'm putting on gloves, so I don't come home with fingernails and like, rubbing my oniony hands through her hair, and she's like, "Oh, honey, what have you been doing?" So, okay. We're trying to come back to another food camera. Hey, I hope y'all are learning something right now. I really do. Please, hopefully you are. And if you are, let Ted know in the chat room that you're learning something cool. Again, we are going to go over. I don't want to rush you through everything. So there we have it. So an onion. Okay. An onion is a very, people ask about how to cut an onion all the time. So let's talk just a couple of things. One, look at that. That is a dirty, okay, that is a dirty monster right there. Okay, so what we're going to do, this is how we do it. Anytime something is round, you get a flat spot. I say get it flat, fast. Meaning the faster you can get a flat spot, the better. So I'm going to pinch and grab, claw, chicken wing. Everything still works. Okay, there's no exception to the rule. This pinch and grab, claw, chicken wing works for anything you're cutting, no matter what size. Okay, and so this one, my tip is off the table, but my goal is when I start to cut, I'm trying to get my tip to the table. Trying to get it there so I have that stability. Okay, cut the end off, turn it to the other end, do it again, cut the end off. Then I've got my flat spot. This onion is not in good shape, but we're going to try to salvage it. Then here, I'm going to cut my onion in half, put the flat spots down. There we go. No roly-roly around for anything. And then from here, I will peel it. Peeling off any bad layers at the same time. So get rid of that. Not so bad underneath. Okay. Got a little rot. I'm just going to shave that off. Now, here's a very important part. Some people will tell you to leave this dirty, nasty thing on there. Okay? Don't do that. It is gross, disgusting, full of dirt. So get rid of that thing. Get it in the trash can. All right? Get it in the trash can, and then clean your cutting board. So if you're doing a lot of onions, cut the ends off and peel all of them first. Peel them all. And then clean your cutting board. Get all the dirt and grime from the ends off. Wipe your knife off. You wipe your knife always a blade away from you. Okay, so I just put my fingers right here, right below the blade, and just go like that all the way down. Once you put a towel in it, the towel will finish the rest. It'll get the edge for you without you ever touching it. So, here we go. So this, let's see which camera, where's my camera? Okay. Can you see in there? Can you see the lines? Yeah, it's really hard today. Okay, let me get Noah's. Can you see the lines? A little bit, your onions, you'll see them. Okay, so what I need is my piece of paper. Okay, so here's the lines. If my finger is the lines, and you take your knife and you cut with the lines, right? Cut with the lines. That makes it a long, that makes it a long strip, right? And when something is long like that, it's longer. It means it's harder to chew for you because it's a tougher piece. But if you take, again, my fingers are the grain in it. If you cut across the grain, it makes small pieces a lot easier to chew, right? A lot easier to chew if they're small. Okay, with the grains, you cut this way. You cut this way with the lines, and if you cut it, make it a nice long piece. But if you cut across the grain, then I just gotta get my spot. It's right there. I'm learning. We put the camera in a different spot today. I have to relearn everything. You cut across the grain and make small pieces easier to chew. So here's how that works for your onion. Okay, if you cut across, well, before I do that, I'm going to show you one more part about the onion. Onion. If you look in there, okay, it's got lines. It's got these curves, right? You look at the end of yours. This is what it looks like. pieces of paper. So when you're about to cut an onion, a lot of times people, they take their knife and they go sideways. And they go cut like this, and they cut sideways. One, it's super dangerous to cut sideways. So that's where they're wrong. And you can tell people that they're just wrong. I don't usually say that. I believe there's a lot of ways to get to one end, but they're just wrong on this one. And so you have your onion, and this is what it looks like. And if you cut across, like they tell you to do that, that's a sideways cut. And then you come back and you cut down. Look at your onion. You've got all these different size pieces: small, large, small, large, small, medium, large. All these different sizes. And then some of them, when you cook them, some of them are going to turn to mush, some of them won't get done. So let's not do that. Let's look at the safer and better way. This is your onion. Okay. Now, advanced level, we actually cut in at an angle, like that. You're going to cut straight down. You're going to cut kind of like straight down. Either way, when you do that, look how much more even the pieces are. Like they're like the same shape. Yes, you still can get some small ones, but they're all going to be the same shape and relative size, right? So here's what that looks like. That looks like, if you want your onion to stay together, you come up here. I'm going to draw you a little line. I just put Sharpie on, yes, I just put Sharpie on my onion. Make this get real close right on top of me. There we go. I want you to be like right.
You want me to go on the other side?
Right there. No, perfect. Right there. Okay. That's what you look like. Okay, so here, I'm going to cut straight down, straight down, straight down. See where the tip of my knife is? It's right at the black line. See, I'm cutting all the way through, just like I did at strawberry, cutting down to the bottom, but leaving that last little bit connected. That's why sometimes people tell you to leave like that hairy, dirty core on there to hold it together. Yeah, well, you can still do it and keep a nice, clean cutting board. Okay. So, actually, you know what? I'm just gonna get myself positioned. All right, I'm just gonna and Noah can keep it. You can keep it there, Noah. I close my eyes because if I'm using my claw hand and my knife properly, I don't even need to see. I get to the end. You know what? Don't sacrifice fingers. Just let go, and you're done. All right. Then we're gonna turn it 90 degrees, and now you're gonna put your tip on the table and slice all the way through, all the way through. You're gonna have this beautiful, even dice. You're welcome, because I know a lot of you've been struggling with that. And so if you just had a revelation, go, oh, in the chat room, okay? That's what I want to see. I want to come all the way through. Now I get down to the end, again, look, my fingers, they just want to slide off. Okay, they just want to like, oops, it's just too thin. So let go, that's fine. I'm going to get rid of the marker, that's trash. And now you have this, yes, you're going to have this piece right here. What's that?
Fingers up in front of the camera now.
No, your fingers are in the camera.
There we go.
Rookie.
The camera's in a different spot.
And so when you get to this part, you just rough chop this last piece and kind of try to match it up with everything else. Then you've got this diced onion. Now let's go back to your julienne. We're going to julienne this side. So julienne, I'm going with the grain. Watch, I'm cutting with the grain, long, thin strips, julienne. There we go. Breathe deeply through your mouth, it's burning. So there's a long, thin strip called a julienne. Now, if I turn it this way and cut the thin strips, cutting across the grain, okay, we get two different types. So you have the one that's cut with the grain, super strong. I'm yanking on it. Look at that, super strong. One that's cut across the grain breaks apart super easy, and you can kind of like check that out yourself at home. Try the two different ways. This way is great if you're eating a salad, because this is easier for you to chew if you can eat it raw. But if you're going to cook your onion, you want to cut it with the grain so it's nice and strong. So there we go. The last thing I'm going to show you is some garlic. Then we're going to cook our chicken real quick, and we're going to eat. So, y'all, if you're wondering like when do we eat, I would say probably 10 minutes. I think we can make this happen in 10 minutes. So your garlic, okay, wipe your cutting board down. So your garlic, something small. First, take that, focus. So that little dark thing, Ted, we should switch it to the camera next time, the back. That little dark thing, that's your core, shave it off. Right? And you can do, even though this is small, people are like, well, I should just change everything I learned because it's tiny. No, you shouldn't. I'm still going to pinch and grab. I'm still going to claw. Still going to chicken wing. I'm going to put these together, go right on top of this garlic, and I'm going to cut it into, I'm going to turn it long ways here. I'm going to cut it into planks first. Okay. Cut it into planks, just like we did the carrot. The carrot came out in planks, little planks of wood. Then you can take that plank of wood, even as small as it is, zoom down on me there, Noah. You can cut it into julienne strips, just like we did the carrot. It's just smaller. Look, I'm down to a fingernail right here. My claw, down to a fingernail. That's all we need to be. Cut it into strips. Take those strips and turn them. Line them up. And then dice them in a small, that's called mince right there. You can do that. You can also take your garlic. Again, I'm going to cut the little end off. A lot of times people want to crush the garlic. Okay? So Noah, put your thumb about right here. Okay. If my knuckles are on the cutting board, go up just a little bit, about right. There you go. If my knuckles are on the cutting board, you see how my knife is angled? My knife cannot touch the cutting board. So everyone takes their garlic and they put it way up here, and it's hard to smash. So instead, slide your knuckles off the table so your knife can get flat. Look, it's nice and flat. Take your tip, press it just like you've been doing. Press it down. Put your garlic way back here. Use leverage and just whoosh. Super easy. That's how you crush it, and and you can chop it up however you want to from there. That just makes it. This keeps it from rolling around on. Okay. So there's that. So I'm gonna chop this a little bit more garlic. And I will say, since we're going to go over on time, I'm going to go ahead and start the next part, which is we're going to cook some chicken real quick to eat. And then I will stay on for those of you who need some help, want questions, want me to see anything. I will stay on for you as long as we need to. Okay? I will, or maybe coming over here. All right, there we go. That's probably good. All right, so the chicken. Usually it's thick on one end, right? So it's thick here and it's thin here. In order to get this part cooked, this gets in order to get this cooked, this will be overdone all the time, and it's hard to cook something this thick on the stove top. It's just thick. So this is what we call the penny packer method. So penny packer is my last name. This is my method. If you share it, you need to be hashtag penny packer method, or else I'll hunt you down. Okay? It's gonna be copyrighted. You ready? So what I do is I take my knife, and I'm gonna come. This is the thick part where I'm starting. I come halfway up the thick part. See it? About halfway. And I'm going to cut at an angle. I'm going to follow the angle of the top. So my knife is following the same angle that the chicken is sitting at. Kind of starts high, starts to go down low. And just following that shape. I have people who love this now. Okay, now I'm touching the cutting board. Noah, give me a top view. Straight on top. Okay, I didn't cut it all the way in half. I cut at an angle down. And so what ends up happening, when I take that piece off, now this chicken breast, they're all the same thickness. Give me a shot from right here, Noah. Right? Okay. See, they're all the same. A little higher, just a touch higher. They're all the same thickness. Okay. And okay, good. And then what I end up doing is, depending on the size, sometimes I cut this one in like 3 pieces. Sometimes I just want to leave it, or sometimes I cut it in 2 pieces. Right. So you have multiple pieces. And I'll show you one more time. So here's my chicken breast. And take it. I'm going to get it towards the edge of the cutting board. Right. Now come halfway up the thick part and cut at an angle. At an angle. All the way. Just following the angle of the chicken will be your guide. Don't touch the cutting board. So basically kind of cutting off the back of that thick lobe. And then this one, you can cut it in 2 or 3 pieces. Right? And now we're going to start cooking. I'm going to take the chicken. if you bought ingredients from us, this is where you're going to use your rub. So I'm going to put the chicken in a bowl. While I still have a chickeny hand, I'm going to add some oil. Just a little bit of cooking oil. I'm going to add some salt. Okay, sprinkle it on. I'll add some pepper. Then I'm going to add some of the sweet blackening spice. If you made it, it's really good. That's one of my secret recipes. Okay, don't share it with anybody. I'll be mad at you. I like to heavily put it on personally. That's what I like to do. Make sure it's nice and coated. If it's a little bit too dry looking, then I add just a little bit of oil. I want it to kind of look pasty, thick, covered, coated. Okay. There it is. All right, cool. Now I'm going to drop my, actually get rid of this. I'm going to drop my glove. I know you can turn that one off. Okay, we can spotlight the food one. We're getting ready to cook. Getting some hot stuff here. All right, sanitize. Pulling my burner out. Get my pan. Okay, so I'll teach you how to saute and things in a different one. Ted, I need to switch to this audio. Join audio.
Is it on? Can you hear me? Can you still hear me? Okay, so I'm going to get my pan hot. So start getting your pan hot. And you want to get it nice and hot. For those of you who aren't cooking any chicken, just keep practicing your knife skills, and then I'll answer some questions for you guys. But I'm going to make a little chicken to go on top of mine. And again, thank y'all for the few minutes over because of our technical difficulties. Oh, my pan will take a couple seconds here to get hot. Oh, gotcha. Well, I guess, did we figure it out at all, or? Okay. All right, so wait for my pan to get nice and hot. To get it good and hot. See, the cool thing about the way we cut that chicken is when it's cut that way, it cooks really fast. So now my pan's starting to get hot. I'm actually gonna put a little bit of fat right here, corner of my pan, and I'm gonna put my garlic. Yeah, garlic and some onions in there. I'm just gonna keep it in the corner because it's my vinaigrette. And then my pan is getting hot. I'm gonna put just a little bit of fat in the pan, let that get hot. Then I'm gonna cook some chicken. Oh, yeah. Put your chicken in there and just let it sit, y'all. Don't stir it. Don't go back and forth with it. Don't flip it. Just put it in and let it sit. And while that's cooking, smells really good. Let it cook. What's that? No, I'm not gonna make a vinaigrette. If you have you could use a vinaigrette at home if you wanted to put on your chicken. That'd be fine. If you wanted to, or just oil and salt and pepper would be fine, and put your vinaigrette on your salad. So I have some garlic and onions right here, and I'm just gonna make a quick vinaigrette. So those of you who purchase ingredients from us, you should have this stuff. It's super easy. You're gonna take your garlic and onions. I sauteed them a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and add the honey. So they're in a bowl now, garlic and onions. I got some honey. Vinegar. The vinegar I gave you is one of my favorites. It's called sherry vinegar. And then we're going to take some mustard. Put all that together. Grab a towel if you got it. Grab a towel. Pull it nice and tight. A wet one is even better. And twist it up. Make it like this. Make a little nest. okay, and tie it like into a little circle and put that in there. I'm going to check my chicken. Oh, your chicken to get some nice dark color on it like that. Love it. Okay. And then I'm going to take some oil from a vinaigrette. I'm just going to whisk fast and drizzle some oil in as I'm whisking, making a quick little vinaigrette. Okay, a vinaigrette is made. Done. Chicken, just about halfway cooked through. Get some nice, the sweet blackening spice, if it gets some black color on it, that's good. It's not burned. That's going to taste fantastic. I'm going to turn my heat down just a hair. There we go. All right, I'm going to flip my chicken over. And it's about halfway now, since it's cut nice and thin. Ooh, good looking stuff. And y'all, while that's finishing its cooking, let me just show you. So, we've got our greens. You can make your salad look pretty, all right? But there's some of our practice. Take some of your vinaigrette. Drizzle some over there. I'm not really all about plate presentation today on this one. I really wanted you to learn the skill. It's all about the skill. Practice, practice, practice. And when that chicken's done, I hope you learned something fun tonight and a skill. This is a skill that needs practice. So you're required to have like stir fries, salads, stuff like that for the next week. Practice, practice, practice. And then you know what? Shoot me a video. Shoot me a video on Facebook or something of how well you're doing with your knife skills. And we're officially, if you need to jump off of here because it's that time, I totally understand. You are free to go. So I just want to give an official thank y'all for being here tonight. Please check us out on Facebook. If you had a great experience, share your experience with us on Google reviews, on Facebook reviews. We do have a YouTube station that we're going to start building.
God bless you. Be safe. And let's cook together again soon. Good night.